Late at night, the high school alumni Snapchat group suddenly blew up. Someone had too much to drink and started a poll. If you could bring one high school couple back together, who would it be? In less than a minute, the votes were almost completely one-sided. Serena and Ethan. Messages flooded the chat. It was such a tragedy they broke up. If it weren't for that misunderstanding, they'd probably have a kid in elementary school by now. Even after all these years, I still think they are soulmates. Just then, Serena, who had been silent for years, finally appeared. She replied with only one sentence. Sometimes, missing someone for a moment means regretting it for a lifetime. The group chat instantly exploded with teasing emojis. But I slowly put my phone down, because the man they were calling her lifetime regret was currently sleeping right next to me. Ethan Vance, my husband, and a man who had never loved me in our 7 years of marriage. The notifications on my screen kept flashing. Serena, are you staying for good this time? Serena replied quickly. Yes, I'm back for good. That single sentence set the group chat on fire again. Why isn't Ethan in this chat? Does anyone know if he has a girlfriend right now? He's a billionaire CEO now. He's so busy every day, and there's never been any gossip about him. He definitely doesn't have a girlfriend. Wait, why did they break up in the first place? Serena went to Europe to study and Ethan stayed. He didn't want a long-distance relationship. Oh my God. Now Serena came back. Does that mean they still have a chance? Serena didn't confirm or deny it. A few seconds later, she sent a smiling emoji. If it's meant to be, we'll meet again. The chat filled up with flower and applause emojis. I quietly exited Snapchat and locked my phone. Beside me, Ethan was fast asleep. In our 7 years of marriage, he had always been like this. Calm, restrained, and polite. He remembered every anniversary. He transferred money into our joint account on time every month. He accompanied me to visit my family, but he didn't love me. Just as I was about to turn off the nightstand lamp, his phone suddenly lit up. A new message popped up on his screen. I'm back. There was no contact name saved, but I recognized the sender instantly. It was Serena. I turned my head to look at Ethan. His breathing was steady. He didn't wake up. His long, elegant hand rested gently on my waist, just like it did every night. The wedding band on his ring finger pressed cold against the back of my hand. It was so cold it made my chest ache. My fingertips hovered over his phone. All I had to do was enter his passcode, and I could see their chat history. But a second later, I pulled my hand back. Ethan never hid his phone from me, because he knew I would never spy on him. And because I knew, even if I saw something, it wouldn't change a thing. Back in high school, I had seen with my own eyes how deeply he loved Serena. Once, a girl from a lower grade secretly handed him a love letter. Serena ignored him for a whole day. After school, he chased her across half the football field. He stuffed his phone into her hands, a helpless smile on his face. Are you jealous? I already rejected her friend request. If you don't believe me, you can check my chats. Delete whoever you want. Back then, Ethan only had eyes for one person. But now, he had locked all his warmth away. Dawn was just breaking. Before the alarm could ring, Ethan woke up. Almost instinctively, he reached for his phone on the nightstand. Usually he would get up early to work out for an hour. But not today. He just leaned against the headboard, staring down at his phone. The screen went bright, then dark, then bright again. It wasn't until almost 8 o'clock that he finally put it down, got up, and started changing. I acted casual and asked, Are you going to the alumni reunion next week? He paused while buttoning his cuffs. Yeah. We never had much to talk about. Despite sharing the same bed, I had only found out about the reunion from the group chat last night. Ethan hesitated for a moment. Are you going? I shook my head. To others, high school was a beautiful memory of youth. To me, it was nothing but humiliation I never wanted to recall. He didn't push it. He just gave a faint nod. Okay. He probably didn't want me there either. The moment the front door closed, I picked up my phone. The alumni group chat had already accumulated over 200 messages, and they were all about Ethan and Serena, the rebellious billionaire heir and the beautiful, sweet straight-A student. The two of them together had always been the ultimate gossip topic. Serena finally popped up. Just woke up. See you guys at the reunion next week. Various members replied instantly. Can't wait to see you. Does that mean you saw everything we talked about last night? I thought you muted this chat long ago. I totally ship you and Ethan. Serena replied with a cute cat waving emoji. It's fine. Actually, it was pretty interesting to read. Her words were vague and hard to read. Nobody pushed further. Instead, they moved on to the reunion. By the way, is Ethan actually coming? The news says he's been traveling abroad for business lately. He probably won't have time for a high school reunion. The boy who used to climb over school walls and skip classes for Serena is now the mature, powerful CEO of the Vance group. Who can even reach him anyway? The group went silent for a few seconds. Then, Serena sent a message. He'll be there. Someone immediately asked, "How do you know?" She waited a few seconds before replying. "He promised me." Valerie. Ethan stood at the bedroom door, fastening his cuffs as he reminded me. "Don't you have plans at 9? I quickly checked the time. 8:40 a.m. I had barely slept last night, and I had actually forgotten to set my alarm. I didn't have time to look at my phone anymore. I jumped out of bed. Today, I had planned to visit his grandmother at 9 to help her with some gardening. I had a strict sense of time and was never late, except for once in high school. It was a Monday. There was a massive pileup on the highway, and traffic was deadlocked. I had jumped off the bus halfway and run all the way to the classroom, gasping for breath. The teacher for that class was extremely strict and hated tardiness. There was only 1 minute left. Ethan was walking ahead, staring at his phone, his pace leisurely. Just one step away from the classroom door, he suddenly stopped. He squatted down and began to tie his shoelaces slowly. It looked like he was waiting for something. He could have easily made it inside, but instead, he got locked out of the classroom with me. It wasn't until I saw Serena panting as she ran up from behind us that I finally understood. He was waiting for her. In the living room, I looked back at him. Ethan was sitting at the dining table, sipping his coffee. An impulse suddenly took over me, and I wanted him to drive me. "Ethan, I'm running late. Are you busy?" In our 7 years of marriage, this was the first time I had ever asked him for a favor like this. If he just said, "I'll drive you," I think I would have been happy for a very long time. But he just glanced down at his watch. "I'll have my driver take you." I froze for a moment. "Okay. Thank you." Thank you was a phrase we used all the time in our daily lives. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for grabbing my coat. We were as polite as roommates who had lived together for years. We didn't look like a married couple at all. Thanks to his driver, I wasn't late. Grandma Evelyn was already waiting for me in the garden. She wore a sun hat, bending over to prune the roses. We had met in a community garden years ago. She loved flowers, but her children and grandchildren were always too busy to keep her company, so she always went alone. I went to that garden often too. She always said that even the most beautiful flowers needed patient care. Slowly, we got to know each other. We became close friends despite the age gap. Back then, I didn't know she was Ethan's grandmother. During our casual chats, she would only mention that she had a rebellious, troublesome grandson. Until one day, Ethan came to pick her up. "Valerie." Grandma Evelyn waved her hand in front of my face. "What's wrong? You seem distracted today." I had cut several wrong branches. I snapped out of it and shook my head with a smile. She noticed my unusual behavior and asked, "Did you and Ethan have a fight?" I shook my head. Let alone fighting, we had never even had an argument. Ethan is a bit emotionally clueless. I'll give him a piece of my mind later. Hearing the word clueless used to describe Ethan was almost funny. In high school, he was the crush of countless girls. He came from a wealthy family and was incredibly handsome. More than that, he was an absolute romantic. Before the winter formal, he had the entire lobby filled with white roses just because Serena once said they were her favorite. On New Year's Eve, he didn't go home just so he could set off fireworks outside the classroom window while she was studying. I had received white roses and watched fireworks before, but it was always because of Serena. My thoughts were a mess. Later, I married him, but I never saw that passionate side of Ethan again. As the breeze swept through the garden, a sudden realization hit me, explaining my unusual behavior since last night. I was afraid. I had always been good at waiting. When I was a kid, I waited for someone to adopt me. Later, I waited for the last bus after my part-time shift ended. And, even later, I waited for a husband who would never proactively come home to me. Out of habit, it felt like I was preparing to wait again. Wait for Ethan to rekindle his old flame with his first love. And then passively accept a divorce. My waiting in the past had always been numb and dull. But this time, I was terrified. A person has to be brave, at least once. So, for the first time, I went to Ethan's office building. On the way, I rehearsed the words in my head 1,000 times. "Do you still love Serena? Do you plan to divorce me?" But I was stopped right at the lobby. The receptionist wore a polite smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Visitors must book an appointment a week in advance." I wasn't sure if Ethan wanted everyone to know about our marriage, so I didn't reveal my identity. I called Ethan just as the phone started ringing. I heard his familiar ringtone echoing from the elevator bank. Ethan was walking at the very front of a group. He looked at his phone, a puzzled expression on his face, seemingly debating whether to answer. I instinctively hung up. He didn't seem to care much either. He deliberately slowed his pace, occasionally turning back to speak to someone. It wasn't until he passed within 4 yards of me that I saw Serena, who had been blocked from my view behind him. Time had left no marks on her face. She still had that pure, innocent first love face. She looked exactly like she did in the photos on Ethan's old private Instagram account from 8 years ago. She caught up and walked side by side with him. Her voice carried a hint of joy. "Oh, you haven't changed your ringtone after all these years? It's still my favorite instrumental piece." 17-year-old Ethan had been incredibly rebellious. He only listened to hip-hop, reggae, rock, and electronic music. But Serena was different. She loved instrumentals. Ethan's taste in music had changed solely because of her. I suppose that was the mark love had left on him. Even today, the habit remained. Only after they walked away did the receptionist call out to me. "Ma'am, as you can see, Mr. Vance is already in a meeting. If you need to see him, you can make an appointment with the executive office." I forced a smile. "Thank you. No need." I felt so exhausted, and my eyes stung with unshed tears. I figured I just needed to go home and sleep it off. But the alumni Snapchat group kept buzzing. Guess who I just bumped into at a restaurant? Ethan and Serena. Oh my god, are they really back together? The high school drama I've been shipping is finally getting a happy ending. At Serena, come verify this right now. Serena posted a photo. A window seat, fine dining, and a man. His face wasn't in the frame, but from the veins on his toned forearm, it was easy to recognize him. She replied, "This restaurant is amazing. Highly recommend." She didn't give a direct answer, but anyone with eyes could see it. I zoomed in on the photo over and over again. Ethan had very beautiful hands, with distinct knuckles. I had held them countless times. I had also slipped his wedding ring onto his finger. My eyes kept drifting back to his left hand. His ring finger was completely bare. He had taken off the wedding ring he always wore. Ethan came home very early. He didn't come to our room immediately. Instead, he went to the balcony to smoke a cigarette. He had quit smoking the day we got married. But meeting Serena again seemed to have thrown him off balance. After his shower, he wrapped his arms around me from behind. Aside from when we were in bed, we had never had this kind of physical intimacy. He asked in a low voice, "Should we talk?" "Talk about what? The divorce?" My breath caught, and my body instinctively went stiff. "Never mind." He changed the subject. "Why did you call me today?" Our saved phone numbers were practically useless. We only messaged on Snapchat occasionally and never called. I didn't know what to say. And I didn't have the energy to say it anyway. "Accidental dial?" "No wonder you hung up so fast." He quickly came up with an explanation. That night, his kisses in bed were meticulous and unusually gentle. But I actually preferred his wild, unchecked side. At those moments, I could catch a glimpse of the 17-year-old boy he used to be. They say loving someone makes you childish. I had seen him playfully mess up his lover's hair, laughing freely and wildly. I had also seen him stand up for her, fighting until he was bleeding. But in front of me, he never showed any emotion. He was always quiet and distant. Precisely because I had seen how he loved someone. I knew clearly that Ethan did not love me. I didn't know what to do. I had no friends or family to confide in, except Grandma Evelyn. That entire afternoon, I stared at the rose in front of me, the one I had carefully tended to, yet it had still withered. I had watered it, loosened the soil, and cut off the dead leaves. But when some flowers withered, no amount of saving could bring them back. I wondered if marriage followed the same rule. I asked softly, "Grandma, if a flower can't be saved, what should I do?" She smiled. "Then don't save it. Pull it out and make room for a new one." She gently patted my hand. "Not everything is worth wasting a lifetime on." Yes, I should just let it go. Autumn was coming. I didn't swap out the clothes in my closet for the new season. My body wash was running out. But I didn't stock up during the big sale like I usually did. I packed many of my clothes into cardboard boxes. Ethan looked at the half-empty closet, confusion in his voice. "Where are your clothes?" "I'm planning to donate them to the foster home." "Elite." I just didn't want to be in a rush when I left, so I was preparing early. Even the speech to bring up the divorce had been rehearsed hundreds of times in my head. That night, he was working in the study. I stood outside, taking 3 deep breaths before failing to turn the doorknob. Ethan was sitting at his desk, holding his phone to his ear with one hand while rubbing his temples with the other. He looked exhausted, and his voice sounded incredibly soft. "Serena, I can handle the issues on my end anytime. It's been too long, and I don't want to wait anymore. I didn't have the courage to hear the rest. I quietly stepped back and gently closed the door. I felt so pathetic. Ethan was more impatient than me, yet he was much better at hiding it. Divorce was something I had to treat with absolute seriousness. I needed to be fully prepared psychologically and bring it up at the right time. But he didn't care at all. Perhaps he was just waiting for the exact moment he and Serena officially got back together. Then he would notify me of the divorce and handle me. I was the one taking it too seriously. I had placed too much weight on this marriage of convenience. That night, I still brought up the divorce. I chose the most abrupt moment, using the most casual tone. As Ethan was passionately kissing my ear, I turned my head away, my face expressionless. Ethan, let's get a divorce. The silence after my words was absolute, heavy enough to crush the air right out of my lungs. Ethan's body went completely rigid above me. His hand, which had been resting warmly on my waist, tightened until his knuckles pressed hard against my side. For 3 agonizing seconds, he didn't move. He didn't breathe. Then, slowly, he raised himself up, his shadow swallowing me whole in the dim amber light of the bedroom. What did you just say? His voice was raspy, stripped of its usual calm precision. I didn't look into his eyes. I knew if I looked at his handsome, composed face, the resolve I had built over 7 long, quiet years would crumble into dust. I said, let's get a divorce. I repeated, my voice steady almost conversational, as if I were asking him what he wanted for breakfast. Already signed my portion of the apartment transfer over to you. I don't want any of the Vance group shares. I just want my freedom. Ethan stared down at me, his dark brows pulled into a tight line. A flicker of something raw and unreadable flared in his eyes. Anger? Confusion? Dismay? It was gone before I could parse it, replaced by that familiar, impenetrable mask he always wore. Are you out of your mind, Valerie? He sat up on the edge of the mattress, running a hand aggressively through his dark hair. Where's this coming from? Did someone say something to you? Was it my mother? Is it about work? It's not about your family. It's not about work, I said softly, sitting up and pulling my silk robe over my shoulders. It's about us, Ethan. Or rather, the lack of us. We're fine, he snapped, his voice rising a fraction of a pitch, a rare break-in. His strict emotional control. We have never had a single argument in 7 years. I give you everything you ask for. I'm home every night I'm not traveling. How is that a lack of US? I looked at him then. Really looked at him. That's just it, I whispered. We've never argued because we've never cared enough to fight. You treat me like a valued business partner, Ethan. A roommate you respect. A wife who keeps your home quiet and handles your grandmother's garden. But you don't love me. He froze, his jaw clenching hard enough for a muscle to twitch under his skin. Valerie, don't lie to me, I interrupted gently, reaching over to touch his hand one last time. And don't lie to yourself. Serena is back. You don't have to keep pretending anymore. The moment her name left my lips, Ethan's posture changed. He didn't deny it. He didn't yell. He just fell silent, his dark eyes staring at me with an intensity that made my throat tighten. Go back to sleep, I said, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. I'll stay in the guest room tonight. We can talk to the lawyers on Monday. I didn't wait for his answer. I grabbed my phone, walked out and shut the door. Behind that closed door, I heard the heavy thud of a hand slamming against a nightstand, followed by the quiet, sharp sound of glass shattering. The next morning, the house was dead silent. When I walked into the master bedroom at 7 o'clock, Ethan was gone. The bed was made meticulously, but the air still carried the faint, lingering scent of his cedarwood cologne and stale cigarette smoke. On the nightstand, a crystal glass lay shattered on the floor, untouched. I didn't clean it up. It wasn't my house anymore. I carried my 2 packed suitcases down to the living room. 7 years of marriage and my entire life fit into 2 pieces of luggage. I didn't take the designer bags he bought me for anniversaries, nor the diamond necklaces sitting in the velvet boxes in my vanity. I only took my clothes, my sketchbooks, and a small potted succulent Grandma Evelyn had given me 3 years ago. Before I left, I placed my wedding band on the marble kitchen island. The cold platinum ring gleamed under the recessed lights, looking small and solitary. I pulled up my Snapchat one last time to delete the app, but before I could uninstall it, a new notification popped up on the high school alumni group. It was a screenshot from a local luxury hotel event page. Reunion official location: the Grand Regency Ballroom. Next Friday, 7 p.m. Right below it, Serena had posted a short video. She was walking through the Grand Ballroom of the Regency, wearing a tailored cream dress, smiling brightly at the camera. Just setting up the private lounge for next week, she wrote. Huge thanks to Vance Group for sponsoring the entire venue. See you all soon. The chat was overflowing with praise. Holy crap. Ethan sponsored the entire Grand Regency for us. Serena, you definitely have pull with the CEO. They haven't even officially announced it, but come on, sponsoring a whole ballroom for a high school reunion? That's true. Love. I closed the app, deleted it, and turned off my phone. So that was what he was working on late at night. That was why he said on the phone, Serena, I can handle the issues on my end anytime. I don't want to wait anymore. He was clearing the path. He was giving her the grand entry she deserved. I took a deep breath, picked up my bags, and walked out into the cool morning mist. For the next 5 days, I lived in a modest, furnished one-bedroom apartment near the art gallery where I worked as a restorer. It was quiet. For the first time in 7 years, I didn't wake up checking the time to make sure Ethan's breakfast was ready. I didn't sit in the silent living room until midnight, listening for the sound of his key in the lock, wondering if he was eating dinner alone at his desk or thinking about another woman. Yet, peace didn't come easily. My heart felt like an amputated limb, aching for something that was no longer there. Ethan didn't try to call me. He didn't text. It proved my theory right. Once I took the initiative to step down, he smoothly accepted it. He was probably waiting for the reunion to make everything official. On Thursday afternoon, Grandma Evelyn called me. I hesitated before answering, afraid she would scold me or try to mediate. Valerie, dear. Her voice came through the speaker, warm and gentle. Are you busy? The white tea roses in my courtyard are blooming. Come have afternoon tea with me. I squeezed my eyes shut, holding back a sudden surge of tears. Grandma, I don't think I should come. Ethan and I know, she interrupted softly. The boy came to my house 3 nights ago. He sat in my garden in the rain for 2 hours without saying a word, smelling like alcohol and tobacco. I've never seen him look so lost. My breath hitched. He came to you? Come over, Valerie, she said gently. Not for him. For me. I missed my favorite gardening partner. An hour later, I was sitting in Grandma Evelyn's quiet courtyard. The old lady looked at me with deep, knowing eyes. She poured a cup of hot tea and placed it in front of me. You've dropped a lot of weight in 5 days, child, she noted softly. I'm fine, Grandma, I murmured, looking down at the floating tea leaves. I'm sorry I disappointed you. You were so good to me, but I couldn't keep his heart. Grandma Evelyn let out a long sigh, reaching across the table to cover my hand with her warm, weathered palm. Valerie, do you know why I was so happy when Ethan brought you home 7 years ago? I shook my head. Because you were worried about him? Because I was quiet and obedient? No, she said firmly. Because for the first 5 years after high school, Ethan was like a ghost. He worked 18 hours a day, never smiled, never let anyone close to him. He was cold, arrogant, and reckless. But the day he brought you home, I saw light in his eyes again. He looked at you like a man who had finally found his anchor. I smiled bitterly. Grandma, you misunderstood. He married me because I was convenient. In high school, he loved Serena. Everyone knew it. And now she's back. Grandma Evelyn scoffed softly. Serena? That manipulative girl whose family used to leech off our secondary business suppliers? Valerie, you've spent 7 years looking at my grandson through the lens of other people's gossip. She leaned closer, her eyes sharp despite her age. Did Ethan ever tell you why he married you? He said he wanted a stable home. I recalled softly. He lied because he was terrified, Grandma Evelyn said flatly. That boy has been an arrogant genius since he was 16, but when it comes to you, he's the biggest coward I've ever met. If you want to know the truth, go to the alumni reunion tomorrow night. Grandma, I don't want to go there to embarrass myself. You won't be embarrassing yourself, she said, squeezing my hand tightly. Go there. Stand tall. Look at the play that girl has staged, and look at what Ethan actually does. If after tomorrow night you still want to sign those divorce papers, I will personally beat him with my walking stick and let you go. Friday night, the Grand Regency Hotel. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high gilded ceilings, casting a warm, golden glow over the hundreds of dressed-up alumni. Champagne flowed endlessly from towering fountains, and live classical music echoed gently through the air. I stood near the entrance, wearing a simple, backless black silk slip dress. No jewelry, no flashy makeup. Just my hair pinned up softly, revealing the long line of my neck. The moment I stepped inside, several heads turned. Wait, isn't that Valerie? Valerie? From class 3? Wow, she looks totally different. She used to sit in the very back corner, always drawing or reading. I barely recognized her. Before I could walk further, a voice dripping with patronizing warmth cut through the crowd. Valerie, you actually came? Serena glided toward me, holding a flute of champagne. She was wearing a breathtaking red lace gown, her makeup flawless, looking every bit the triumphant returning queen. Several former classmates gathered around her like loyal court attendants. I was afraid you wouldn't make it, Serena said, offering a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. I heard from someone that you were working at a small restoration shop. You must be so busy. It's hard making ends meet these days, isn't it? The crowd chuckled nervously. I looked at Serena calmly. It pays the bills. Glad to see you back from Europe. Serena's smile stiffened slightly at my composure. She tilted her head, her gaze dropping to my bare left hand. Oh, Valerie, where's your ring? Don't tell me you're still single after all these years. She was always quiet in high school. A guy nearby chimed in with a laugh. Probably waiting for a miracle. Serena chuckled softly, swirling her champagne. Well, not everyone gets there. Fairy tale. Speaking of which. She glanced toward the main entrance, her eyes shining with triumph. Ethan should be here any minute. He personally ensured this venue was reserved for us tonight. He's been so attentive since I got back. The crowd erupted in quiet gasps and whispers. Oh my God, so the rumors are true. Serena and Ethan really are getting back together. I knew it. 7 years apart, but soulmates always find their way back. Serena took a delicate sip of her drink, basking in the attention. She looked at me, her eyes flashing with a mix of pity and victory. Valerie, if you need help with your career, I can ask Ethan to find a position for you at Vance Group. After all, we were high school classmates. I'm happy to help. I looked at her, my expression utterly impassive. Thank you, Serena. But I don't need Ethan's charity. And neither do you. Before Serena could reply, the heavy double doors of the ballroom swung open. The entire room went dead silent. Ethan stood at the doorway. He wore a tailored dark charcoal suit, his tall, broad frame commanding the room instantly. But he didn't look like the triumphant billionaire CEO the media portrayed. His jaw was covered in dark stubble, his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked profoundly exhausted. Yet, the moment he stepped into the room, an overwhelming aura of power radiating from him silenced every single chatter. Serena's face lit up with radiant joy. She immediately smoothed down her dress, took an elegant step forward, and walked toward him with her hand outstretched. Ethan, you're finally here, she said softly, her voice full of intimate sweetness. Everyone was just talking about how generous you were to sponsor. Ethan didn't even slow down. He walked straight past her. He didn't look at her. He didn't acknowledge her voice. He didn't even pause as he brushed right past her outstretched hand, treating her as if she were made of thin air. Serena froze mid-step, her hand lingering awkwardly in the air, her face draining of all color. The crowd gasped in shock. Ethan's dark, storm-filled eyes swept across the ballroom, ignoring the dozens of gaping faces until they landed directly on me. When he saw me standing near the pillar, wearing the black dress, his breath audibly caught. He strode directly toward me, his long legs cutting through the crowd like a man possessed. Valerie. His voice was hoarse, thick with a desperation I had never heard from him in my life. I stood my ground, my heart hammering against my ribs. Ethan. He stopped right in front of me, breathing heavily. He looked at my bare left hand, and a visible shudder passed through his tall frame. Before I could speak, Serena rushed over, her sweet facade cracking into flustered embarrassment. Ethan. What are you doing? She asked, trying to sound playful despite her trembling voice. Everyone is watching. Why didn't you answer my messages yesterday? I thought we were going to announce the corporate partnership tonight. Ethan slowly turned his head to look at Serena. His eyes were so cold, so terrifyingly devoid of warmth, that Serena instinctively took a step back. Announce what? Ethan's voice was low, cutting through the silence of the ballroom like a razor blade. Announce that Vance Group has officially filed a lawsuit against your family's firm for fraud and corporate espionage. The entire ballroom went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Serena's face went ghastly white. Ethan, what are you talking about? We had dinner. You took off your wedding ring for me. I took off my ring because I broke my ring finger during a workout 3 weeks ago, and the swelling forced me to cut it off, Ethan said, his voice ruthless and brutally calm. And as for dinner, I met you at that restaurant for precisely 12 minutes to give your lawyer our final warning before filing criminal charges against your father. Ethan pulled his phone from his inner jacket pocket, tapped the screen twice, and held it up for the surrounding crowd to see. It was an unedited surveillance camera video from the restaurant. In the video, Ethan was sitting across from Serena, looking utterly stone-faced. Serena reached across the table to touch his hand, but Ethan pulled his arm away. With absolute disgust, stood up and walked out, leaving her alone at the table. You took a photo of my assistant's arm while he was settling the bill, cropped it and posted it on social media to create false press, Ethan said, his voice booming across the silent room. You used my name to scam local vendors, telling them Vance Group was sponsoring this reunion when in reality, you booked it under a fake corporate account. Serena backed away, her hands shaking uncontrollably, her eyes wide with terror. Ethan, please, we used to love each other. In high school, I despised you. Ethan interrupted coldly, his words striking like heavy iron blows. The only reason I ever stood near you was because you were the class president and you constantly positioned yourself between me and the only person I actually wanted to look at. Serena gasped, tears spilling over her mascara. No, that's not true. You set off fireworks for me. You brought white roses to the auditorium. Ethan didn't even look at her anymore. He turned his body back to face me, his dark eyes locked onto mine, completely raw, completely exposed. The fireworks on New Year's Eve were set off outside the East Library window. Because Valerie was staying late to study for her scholarship exams, Ethan said softly, his voice trembling for the first time. I knew she was afraid of the dark walk home. My breath caught in my chest. The white roses. Ethan continued, taking a step closer to me, his voice cracking. Valerie was the stage manager for the winter drama. She mentioned to a classmate that she loved white roses, but nobody ever gave her flowers. I bought 300 of them and left them on the backstage table, pretending they were leftovers from the event, so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable taking them home. The entire ballroom was dead silent. Former classmates were staring at us with wide eyes, completely speechless. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, hot and fast. Ethan, what are you saying? And that Monday morning in senior year, Ethan whispered, his eyes shining with unshed tears as he reached out, his trembling fingers gently touching my cheek. You thought I tied my shoes to wait for Serena. I didn't care about Serena. I was walking ahead of you and saw you sprinting up the stairs with a scraped knee, gasping for air. The strict teacher was about to lock the door. If I walked in, he would have slammed the door in your face. He swallowed hard, his thumb gently wiping away my tear. I tied my shoelaces for 3 minutes in the doorway so the teacher couldn't close the door. I got locked out on purpose so you wouldn't have to stand outside alone. My head buzzed. My knees felt weak. All those memories, all those moments from 7 years ago that I had carried as heavy, painful scars of being an unwanted bystander, were actually quiet, desperate acts of love from a boy who didn't know how to express himself. Then why? My voice was barely a whisper, broken and shaking. Why were you so cold to me for 7 years? Why did you never say anything? Ethan's eyes filled with deep, agonizing regret. Because 7 years ago, when my family forced me into an arranged marriage setup, I asked my grandmother to suggest you. He confessed softly right in front of everyone, caring nothing about his prestige or pride. I thought I was saving you from your aunt's forced match. But on our wedding night, I heard you crying in the bathroom, whispering that you were just a tool, an obedient roommate who had to pay back a debt. He took my hand, pressing his warm palm against mine, his body trembling. I thought you married me out of obligation. I thought you hated me. I was terrified that if I pushed my love on you, if I touched you too much, if I demanded your heart, you would realize how suffocating I was and run away. Ethan choked back a raspy breath, his dark eyes pleading, terrified. So, I forced myself to be polite. I forced myself to be restrained. I thought if I was the perfect, respectful husband, if I provided everything, eventually, maybe after 10 years, 20 years, you might grow to like me a little bit. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it with shaking hands. Inside lay 2 brand new platinum wedding bands, custom engraved on the inside, with our initials and the date of the night he first saw me drawing in the high school library. The phone call you heard late at night, Ethan whispered, tears finally slipping down his sharp jawline. I was talking to my lawyer and my grandmother's jeweler. I said, Serena's family harassment is handled. It's been 7 years and I don't want to wait anymore. I want to give Valerie a real wedding. A real proposal. I want to tell her I love her. The ballroom fell into a profound, breathless quiet. Serena was sobbing quietly in the corner, forgotten by everyone. The classmates, who had teased me hours ago, were looking at Ethan and me with utter awe and deep remorse. I stood there, tears blurring my vision, looking at the man who had built a icy, silent fortress around himself for 7 years. Not to lock me out, but to protect me from his own overwhelming, terrifying obsession. We were 2 idiots. 2 absolute, stubborn idiots who had spent 7 years lying in the same bed, sharing the same air, loving each other in complete, agonizing silence because we were both too terrified of being rejected. Valerie, Ethan dropped to one knee right there on the polished ballroom floor, amidst the crystal lights and the stunned crowd. The billionaire CEO, the ruthless businessman who had never bowed his head to anyone, knelt at my feet, holding up the ring with trembling hands, his face pale with raw terror. Don't leave me, he choked out, his voice completely broken. Punish me. Beat me. Make me sleep on the floor for the rest of my life. But please don't sign those papers. Give me a chance to be the husband you actually deserve. I looked down at him. The cold, restrained ghost of a husband was gone. Standing kneeling before me was the 17-year-old boy who had set off fireworks in the freezing cold, just to light up my quiet study desk. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and stepped forward. I reached out, took the platinum ring from the box, and slipped it onto my own finger. Then I took the second ring and pushed it firmly onto his ring finger, right over the faint white scar where his old ring had been cut off. Ethan froze, staring up at me in disbelief. Valerie? You're an idiot, Ethan Vance, I cried, half laughing through my tears as I leaned down and wrapped my arms tightly around his neck, burying my face in his shoulder. 7 years. We wasted 7 years because you couldn't just tell me. Ethan's arms wrapped around my waist in an instant, gripping me so tightly, so fiercely, as if he were trying to merge me into his very bones. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, his hot tears soaking into my skin. I'm sorry, he whispered over and over, his voice muffled against my hair, kissing my neck, my cheek, my lips with wild, unchecked passion. I'm so sorry, my love. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Applause suddenly erupted around us, starting soft, then growing into a thunderous roar across the ballroom. Former classmates were clapping, shouting, some even wiping away tears. Ethan ignored them all. He stood up, lifting me effortlessly into his arms, carrying me straight out of the grand ballroom, leaving behind the drama, the past, and the high school shadows forever. Epilogue. 3 years later. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass walls of the garden greenhouse. Grandma Evelyn was sitting in a rocking chair under the shade of a blooming lemon tree, sipping tea while watching a small, chubby toddler with dark, messy hair chasing a golden retriever across the grass. Ethan, stop letting Leo eat the soil, I called out, coming out of the house, carrying a tray of freshly baked lemon tarts. Ethan stepped out from behind the tall rose bushes. He had his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, dirt on his hands, and a helpless, adoring smile on his face. He walked over, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, a habit he had never dropped since that night, and rested his chin on my shoulder, breathing in the scent of my hair. He takes after his mother, Ethan murmured softly, kissing my cheek. Stubborn, and loves gardens. He takes after his father, I retorted, laughing as I turned around in his arms. To fix his collar. Reckless, drama-prone, and overdramatic. Ethan chuckled, his dark eyes shining with a deep, endless warmth that never faded. He reached down, his warm hand resting over my flat stomach, where a tiny, new life was quietly growing. How are you feeling today? he asked, his voice instantly dropping into that soft, attentive tone he used only for me. Any morning sickness? I'm fine, Ethan. I smiled, leaning up to press a gentle kiss to his lips. We're both fine. He held my face in his large, warm hands, staring down at me with the same intense, unreserved devotion that had filled his eyes 3 years ago on the ballroom floor. I love you, Valerie, he whispered against my lips. Every single day. For the rest of my life. I know, I replied softly, wrapping my arms around his neck, pulling him closer into the golden sunlight. I've always known.